I've been with Tennessee Emergency Medical Services for more than 20 years, and I thought I had seen it all. Car wrecks that left people in pieces, overdoses that turned kids blue before my eyes, farm accidents that you'd never forget no matter how much whiskey you tried to pour on the memory. But nothing prepared me for the call that came on July 15th, 2020. It was about 10 minutes to 3 when dispatch came through. A wilderness rescue. Frozen Head State Park. Possible spinal trauma. Male, 34. Reported unconscious after falling from an outcropping. Standard enough. I'd worked that park before. It was rugged, sure, but the kind of rugged I knew. The kind you could brace yourself for. I didn't know that what we were walking into wasn't an accident scene. It was something older, something waiting, something that had been sitting quiet in those mountains long before anyone gave the place a name. My team that day was Marcus Williams and Sarah Kim. Marcus was steady as a mountain himself. Army vet, 15 years in EMS. A guy who could laugh even with his boots in blood. Sarah was our wilderness specialist, wiry, quiet, smart. She could find a path in places most folks wouldn't even see as land. We loaded gear into the rig, packs heavy with IVs, oxygen, splints, and monitors, and drove out. The road into Frozen Head was quiet, sunlight on the asphalt, nothing strange yet. But as soon as we left the ambulance behind and went in on foot, things started to go wrong. At first it was just silence. No birdsong, no cicadas, no crack of twigs from deer in the brush. Just us, our boots, and the sound of our breathing. I've done enough wilderness rescues to know what woods should sound like in July. These sounded wrong, like somebody had hit mute on the world. About 2 miles in, the radios went bad. Static, sharp bursts, almost like whispers coming through. I swear I heard words in it. Languages I didn't know, but they had cadence, rhythm. Marcus fiddled with frequencies. No good. Sarah glanced at me, her jaw tight, and I could tell she'd felt it too. That sense that the mountain itself was listening. We pushed on. The coordinates led us higher, deeper. The trees thickened, but the undergrowth thinned until the forest floor looked starved. The trunks were twisted, bark scarred with lines that weren't axe marks or storm damage. More like something had raked across them, long ago and often. My boots vibrated with a faint pulse, like the ground itself was humming. When we hit the GPS coordinates, the first thing I noticed was what wasn't there. No victim, no hikers, no sign of anyone at all. What we did find made my stomach crawl. A scattering of camping gear shredded to ribbons, the nylon torn into curls like paper. Packs burst open, a sleeping bag split end to end. And blood, a trail of it, thick in places, smeared in others, leading off into the trees. Sarah crouched over the wreckage, running her fingers across the tears. "Not bear," she muttered. Her voice was tight, clipped. She'd seen bear damage before. This was different. I pulled my radio again. Dead. No hiss, no static, nothing. Battery indicators said full, but it was just a dead lump of plastic now. Marcus tried his GPS unit, and I'll never forget the look on his face. Says we're in Tennessee, Alaska, and the damn Pacific Ocean all at once. He showed me the screen. Coordinates blinking like mad, jumping between impossible locations. We followed the blood. I wanted to turn back, every instinct screaming at me, but protocol said we had a victim, and if there was even a chance he was alive, we had to push. The trail led us into a clearing, perfectly round, 50 feet across, like something had cut a circle out of the forest. No grass, no weeds, no growth at all, just dead soil, black and cracked. And at the center, a pool, still as glass, darker than oil. It looked like a mirror laid flat, reflecting stars even though the sky above us was still bright blue. That's when the vibration hit hard. Not just in my boots anymore. In my chest, my teeth. The hum of it pressed into my bones. Marcus staggered, his hand on a tree, his lips turning blue. Sarah froze, eyes locked on the pool, her breath short, her face pale like she'd stepped into some trance. And then they came. At first I thought it was shadows moving between trees, tricks of the light. But no, they were things. Tall wrong, limbs too long, bending at angles that made my stomach turn. Skin, or something like skin, shimmered like liquid metal, shifting and flowing. And their eyes. God help me, their eyes weren't eyes at all, just holes lit from the inside with their own glow. One of them came close enough that I could see its head, stretched long like a skull pulled thin. It opened a mouth that wasn't a mouth, just a black cavity that swallowed light. The sound that came out wasn't sound, not really. It was like it bypassed my ears and went straight into my brain, hammering every nerve I had with pure fear. I checked my vitals out of habit, desperate for something familiar to hold on to. My thermometer said my core temperature was 89 degrees Fahrenheit. In July, my blood pressure was spiking. My hands shook so bad I could barely work the monitor. Marcus's heart rate was over 200, and he was barely upright. Sarah, God, she collapsed. Fell to the dirt, convulsing, muttering. Spaces between spaces, watchers in the deep, over and over. The things began circling, not rushing us, not attacking, circling, like wolves hemming prey. The vibration grew so strong that stones on the ground danced. The air turned cold, our breath fogging in front of our faces. My portable thermometer read minus 15 degrees Fahrenheit. I tried the defibrillator on Sarah. Nothing. No charge. For bags were crystallized solid in my pack. Everything was failing. Everything. Marcus grabbed my arm, wide-eyed. "We're not meant to be here," he whispered. "God help us. We gotta move." I pulled Sarah up, slung her arm over my shoulder, and we stumbled. The creatures didn't follow right away. They just watched, drifting back toward that pool like we weren't worth the effort beyond their circle. But I could hear them behind us. Low sounds, not growls, not speech, just communication. Like they were talking about us, deciding if we were worth hunting. The forest didn't make sense anymore. Trails twisted, landmarks doubled back on themselves. My watch said 90 minutes had passed, when by all reckoning, we'd been walking 6 hours. The sun was sinking when we finally broke the tree line, though we should have had daylight left. Sarah was half dead, skin gray, pupils blown wide. We got her to the hospital. Core temp was down in the 70s, numbers that should have killed her. She muttered for days about shapes in the dark, watchers waiting in places we can't see. Doctors chalked it up to neurological trauma. The report said false alarm. No record of the injured hiker who'd supposedly fallen. No sign anyone by that name even entered the park. Gear? Bare activity. Blood? Wounded deer. The official line wrapped it all neat and clean. But I know what we saw. I know what circled us in that clearing, what pressed the life out of us with cold and fear. Those weren't animals, weren't people, weren't anything this world should hold. Frozen Head taught me something that day. Not every call is a call you can answer. Some emergencies aren't meant for medicine or protocol. Some things in those mountains are older than names, older than the dirt we walk on, and they don't give a damn about our training or our rules. I can still feel it sometimes when I drive through the Cumberland at night. That hum in my bones, that pressure behind my ribs. Like the mountain hasn't forgotten me, like the watchers are patient. And God help me, I don't think they're finished. My name is Margaret and McAllister, though most people just called me Maggie back in Ontario. I was a photographer, not the kind chasing glamour or weddings, but the kind who went looking for silence, for the places people had abandoned, the forgotten skeletons of towns buried in the woods. While others drank away their weekends, I packed up my gear and hunted decay. Empty factories, shuttered hospitals, ghost towns where the wind was the only thing left to listen. That's how I ended up driving through the back roads of the Appalachian Mountains one hot July evening in 2011, following a trail of rumors about a coal town swallowed by the hills and left to rot. Folks called it Black Hollow, and every local I asked about it gave me the same blank stare, like they didn't know, or worse, like they wished I hadn't asked. The drive down into the hollow was the kind of road that made you doubt your tires and your brakes, winding sharp and blind through trees so thick they blocked the late sun. Gravel crunched under my Subaru, my hands slick on the wheel. I kept expecting to see a road sign, maybe a half-broken post with the town's name, but there was nothing. Only the feeling that I was trespassing into a place that had been sealed off for a reason. Then the woods broke open, and I saw it. Black Hollow sat in the valley like a secret waiting to be dug up. The houses leaned, roofs caved in but still holding their shapes. A church steeple stood against the sky, pointing stiff and defiant. The main street stretched out ahead, lined with storefronts where glass was cracked but not completely gone, as if the last family had packed up only yesterday. I parked in front of what had once been a general store. The air felt heavy, thick, like it was watching me. I told myself to get my shots quick, pack it in, and drive out before dark. My Nikon hung around my neck like a lifeline. I raised it and began shooting. The rows of houses, the collapsed porches, the dark mouth of what must have been the mine at the edge of the hollow. Every click echoed in my chest. And then I saw her. Through the diner's broken window, my lens caught the faint outline of a girl no older than 8. She was dressed for another time, ribbons in her hair, her legs swinging as she sat at one of the dusty tables. I froze, blinked hard, lowered the camera. The diner was empty. My throat tightened, but I snapped again. Through the lens, she was still there, watching, waiting. My stomach dropped. I muttered a prayer without even thinking. Lord above, what the hell is this? The air didn't answer. I kept walking, heart hammering, and aimed at the church. Through the camera, the pews weren't empty. A full congregation sat in rows, their bodies stiff, their blurred faces turned toward the pulpit. My hands trembled as I lowered the camera, staring at the empty, dust-caked benches. A shiver crawled over me. That was when I felt eyes on me. At the far end of Main Street, a figure stood. Tall, dressed in a black suit that didn't belong to any decade I knew. A wide-brimmed hat shadowed his face. I raised my camera with dread. Through the lens, his features sharpened, and I wished they hadn't. His eyes glowed a deep, unnatural amber, burning out of a skull-white face stretched tight like old leather. His lips curved in a slow smile, like he'd been waiting for me all along. My hand jerked, lowering the camera. The street was empty again, but the image seared itself into me. I should have run. I should have jumped back in the Subaru and peeled out, but the town held me like a hook sunk in my chest. Photographers lie to themselves. We say it's just one more shot, one more angle, but it wasn't curiosity that rooted me there. It was something else, something pulling. By the time I looked up at the sky again, the sun was gone, burned down to embers behind a ridge. Shadows spilled out from every doorway. That's when it began. Light bloomed in the houses. Not electric. No, it was candlelight, soft and flickering. One by one, in windows up and down the street, the glow of flame came alive as if every home had been relit at once. My breath caught in my throat, and then the sound followed. Singing. Low, mournful, hymn-like voices that rolled through the hollow. The hair stood up on my arms as I turned in a slow circle, the sound swelling around me, not from one building, not from one direction, but from everywhere. The church doors creaked open, though I never saw a hand touch them. From inside, that singing poured stronger, joined by footsteps. My camera hung heavy against my chest, but I lifted it once more. Through the lens, the street was no longer empty. People filled it. Men in suspenders, women in long skirts, children clutching rag dolls. They walked slowly, eyes glazed, candles clutched in their hands. And behind them, at the very center of it all, stood the man in black, eyes glowing like the fires of hell. I yanked the camera down. The street was bare, yet the voices, the footfalls, the weight of their presence pressed all around me. My heart slammed against my ribs as I stumbled back toward my car. I fumbled the keys, dropped them in the dirt, cursed, whispered, Oh God, get me out. When I shoved the key into the ignition, the engine coughed and died. Dead. I tried again, but the Subaru wouldn't breathe. My phone was no better. Black screen, no power. Every piece of electronics I owned had given up, like the hollow itself had swallowed the charge. The voices grew louder. Closer. From the corner of my eye, I saw movement. Shapes slipping between buildings, watching me. I bolted. The woods at night in the Appalachians are a hell of their own. Branches clawed at my arms as I crashed through, lungs tearing for air. Behind me, the singing twisted into something higher, laughter pitched wrong, echoing. Candles glowed faint between the trees, flickering like will-o-wisps, hemming me in. I prayed out loud, gasping between words. Sweet Jesus, keep me. Don't let them take me. The ground snagged my boots, rocks tumbled under my soles, but something deeper drove me to keep running. At one point I dared to look back. Through the trees, I saw them. Dozens of them, maybe more. Pale faces, black eyes, mouths moving in unison to hymns older than time. And at the front of them all was him, the man in black. His glowing eyes pinned me like nails. His smile widened. I don't remember how long I ran. Hours, maybe. The singing followed, the laughter, the sense of hands brushing just out of reach. By some mercy, I stumbled onto a logging road, breath ripping my chest. The candlelight faded behind me, swallowed back into the hollow. The night fell silent, heavy as a grave. When I finally reached a highway, dawn was just breaking. A trucker picked me up, gave me a look when I couldn't stop shaking, and said nothing as he drove me out of those mountains. My car was never recovered. My gear, my phone, all gone. I've never gone back. Not to Black Hollow, not anywhere near that stretch of the Appalachians. And yet, sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still see the glow of those candles flickering through the trees. I still hear that hymn rolling low, the voices weaving together like a net pulling tight. Black Hollow isn't abandoned. It's preserved, held by something unearthly. And once you step inside, it doesn't want to let you leave. It was the summer of 2019 when I led that survey team into the guts of the Virginia Blue Ridge. My name's Elijah Mercer, though I don't much like saying it out loud anymore. After that night, names carry a weight they didn't before, like if something else out there learned it too. I was a geologist by trade, the kind of man who made his bread poking around the Earth's ribs. But what we found in those mountains was something older than words, older than the God I begged to help me when the dark pressed in. The job had seemed straightforward, a routine geological survey for the university, checking stability, mapping seismic fault lines, cataloging rock samples. Nothing fancy. We had a lean crew. Marlon Hayes, my field partner and oldest friend, Ruth Ellison, the radar tech, and two grad kids we roped in for grunt work, Willis and Jonah. Good kids, nervous as foxes in daylight, but sharp. We packed all the toys you'd expect: ground-penetrating radar, seismic mics, and a portable lab kit. Felt more like a science fair than an expedition. The Blue Ridge that week was thick with heat, the kind of damp Appalachian air that clings to your lungs like wet cloth. Locals we met at the gas station told us the holler we were heading toward was wrong ground. Their words, not mine. One old-timer leaned out of his truck, spat a stream of brown chew, and said, asterisk, "Ain't nothing down there but things the Lord buried for good reason. Don't go knocking." Asterisk, we laughed it off. Scientists don't take campfire warnings serious until they come true. We set up base camp at the mouth of an uncharted cave system locals called Devil's Breath. The name fit. The air that came spilling out was warm, rank, and alive somehow, like the mountain itself exhaled. The kids joked about sulfur vents, but Ruth's radar sweeps made us shut our mouths quick. Under the ridge, buried 100 meters down, was a void bigger than a football stadium. Perfectly round, with readings that didn't make a lick of sense. The strangest thing was the pulse. Every 15, maybe 20 seconds, The ground microphones picked up a faint tremor. Not the shifting of stone, not a rock slide. This was rhythmic, steady, almost like a breath. You could feel it in your chest if you stood still long enough. Jonah turned pale when he noticed. He whispered, asterisk, feels like the earth's got a heartbeat. Asterisk. I laughed too loud to cover my nerves. It's just the ground settling, I said. But my throat was dry. 2 days in, we roped and descended into the side shaft that cut into that chamber. The walls glistened with a mineral I didn't recognize, soft, jelly-like veins that pulsed faintly when our headlamps swept over them. Not quartz, not calcite, something organic. Ruth said it looked like connective tissue, and she was half joking, but her voice shook. Then came the chamber itself. Lord, I'll never forget it. A cavern so huge our lights barely scratched the far walls. The air was wet, metallic, like old blood and copper. The ground wasn't stone. It was spongy, layered with a fibrous material that cracked and oozed when stepped on. We found embedded shapes, fragments of bone, fossilized but still supple, like the mountain hadn't let them rot. Some were bigger than whale ribs, too big for anything that should have been walking under Virginia's soil. I remember Marlin crouching over a shard, brushing it off with his gloves. Elijah, he whispered, asterisk, this ain't rock. Asterisk, he held it up and the damn thing twitched in his hand, like a nerve firing after death. We should have left right then, packed our gear, climbed our ropes, and never set foot back in Devil's Breath. But curiosity, hell, pride, kept us digging. Hours later, when the tremor hit, the shaft behind us collapsed. It wasn't a natural cave-in. It was like the mountain itself clenched. Dust choked the chamber, and I heard Ruth screaming that we were sealed. The kids cried out for God, over and over, their voices bouncing like broken hymns off the wet walls. My hands shook so bad I dropped my light. When I picked it up, the dust had cleared enough to show me something that's burned into me ever since. The wall across from us opened. At first I thought it was another collapse, but no, this was movement. A section of the cavern wall peeled back like wet paper, and from the gap came a glow, faint at first, then brighter, until it painted the chamber in cold blue light. It wasn't a wall at all. It was flesh, and from it, uncoiling like a serpent from its den, came a body longer than I could measure. Its skin was translucent, showing veins that pulsed with light. Its head, if you can call it that, was flat, eyeless, but rows of teeth caught the glow like prisms, glittering rainbows on wet stone. Jonah went to his knees, mumbling sweet Jesus," like a prayer wheel. Ruth just froze, mouth open, tears streaking down her cheeks. Marlin grabbed my arm, so tight it bruised. The thing didn't rush us. It didn't need to. It moved with that awful, patient certainty of a predator that's ruled the dark since before the first fire was lit. Every shift of its body made the chamber ripple, the floor rising and falling as though we were inside along. That's when it hit me. The pulse, the breath, the readings. We hadn't found a cavern. We were standing inside it. I don't know how long it circled us. My watch had died, along with every other piece of equipment. Electronics shorted out one by one, screens blinking to static. Only our headlamps remained, beams shaking as our hands trembled. Each time I lifted mine, the serpent's skin shimmered, reflecting light in ways stone never could. It opened its mouth once, not to bite, to taste. A sound spilled out, low and groaning, like 100 voices humming through water. My bones ached with it. My ears rang. Willis vomited and crawled behind me, sobbing, asterisk, God save us. God save us, asterisk. And for the first time in my life, I prayed not to find, not to learn, but to survive. At some point, I can't tell if it was minutes or hours, the mountain shifted again. A fissure cracked high above, letting in a thread of daylight. The thing recoiled, not in fear but in annoyance, sliding back into the fleshy wall like smoke through a crack. The glow dimmed. The chamber stilled. We clawed our way out like rats in a burning barn. Bloodied, broken, but breathing. Search and rescue found us 2 days later, half-starved, half-mad. We told them it was a collapse. Gas pocket. Nothing more. That's the line we stuck to, because truth would have damned us. Marlon drinks now. Ruth quit science altogether. The kids don't talk about it at all. Me? I write this down because if I don't, the Thing's song follows me into sleep. Low, patient, unending. Like it marked me when I stood in its chamber. Folks still ask why I don't work the Blue Ridge anymore. I tell them God's ground runs deep, and some places he left alone for a reason. And if you're smart, you'll leave Devil's Breath be. Because not everything the mountain swallows wants to stay buried. I'll tell it straight, though I know half the folks who hear this will roll their eyes and mutter I'd gone soft in the head. Truth is, I don't much care anymore. That mountain ate pieces of me I'll never get back. And whether you believe me or not, don't change the smell of pine and rot that still wakes me in the middle of the night. You want to hear it? Then don't interrupt, because once I start this, I don't want to linger. It all began the summer of 2018, when I found out my great-uncle Silas had passed. Silas was a mean old bird by most accounts, the kind of backwoods Appalachian man who lived off moonshine and venison jerky, who carried stories of the mountains like they were scars. He never had kids, never had much of anyone, truth told. But somehow, in his brittle will, my name was scrawled, giving me his cabin and the land around it. I hadn't seen the man in years, but I figured, hell, a free cabin in West Virginia? Maybe I could fix it up, rent it out, or sell it to some city folks looking for a rustic weekend. That was my thinking. So, one humid Friday, I drove up into those Appalachian ridges, past roads that curled like snakes, and through hollers where sunlight barely touched the ground. The deeper I went, the more the world peeled away. No gas stations, no stores, just rusting barns, empty porches, and the sense that every window I passed had eyes tucked behind the curtains. By the time I pulled into the gravel drive that wound up to Silas's cabin, the sun was sinking, bleeding orange through the trees. My tires crunched slow, and I swear the whole place felt wrong before I even parked. It wasn't just the silence. It was the way the woods leaned in, pressing close like they didn't want me there. That's when I saw the smoke. Thin, gray ribbons curling up from the chimney. I frowned. Nobody was supposed to be here. The lawyer told me it had sat empty since Silas keeled over in his sleep. But I smelled wood smoke, sharp and fresh, and I could make out faint voices, laughing, murmuring, floating from inside. My stomach dropped, but I told myself maybe squatters had found it. Mountain folk drift. I'd deal with it. I wasn't about to drive 4 hours just to turn back. I killed the engine and got out. The gravel crunched loud under my boots, each step echoing too big in the quiet. The voices hushed inside the cabin. I could feel eyes on me before I even reached the porch. The door opened. A man stood there, tall, stringy, with skin stretched tight over bone. His hair was long and greasy, and he grinned at me with teeth the color of tobacco juice. Behind him, in the shadows, I saw more shapes, 2 women and another man, all still as mannequins, watching. "Evenin'," the tall man drawled, like we were old friends. "You must be Travis." "Oh well, Silas's kin." My mouth went dry. Yeah, this was his cabin. He nodded, stepping aside like I was welcome. "Well, reckon it's your end now. We just been keeping it warm for you." Something in the way he said warm made my skin crawl. I stepped in, against every screaming instinct, because walking away felt like weakness. Inside, the cabin looked wrong. Silas's place had been cluttered, sure, but lived in. This was altered. Furniture rearranged. Blankets on the floor like nests. The smell of sweat and something rancid clung to the air. And the people, 3 of them, huddled around the fireplace, stared without blinking. One woman smiled too wide, her gums bare. "Family," she whispered, voice raspy. "Blood." I forced a laugh. "Yeah, family." The tall man clapped me on the shoulder. and I had to stop myself from flinching. His hand was cold, clammy. "We're all Silas's kin," he said. "This here's a family place. And family sticks together, don't they?" They fed me stew that night. I didn't eat much. God help me. I think it was squirrel, maybe worse. They asked about me, but too much. They knew things they shouldn't. Where I worked, where my mama lived, things I hadn't told anyone but Silas years ago. Every time I tried to steer the talk away, they'd circle back. When the fire burned low, the tall man leaned close, his breath sour against my ear. "Silas left this place to you, boy, but it ain't yours. Blood's what matters, and your blood's already in the ground here." The others laughed, soft, wheezing laughs that made my stomach knot. I excused myself to the porch, pretending I needed air. My hands shook so bad I nearly dropped my lighter. I wanted to leave right then, but my truck sat at the bottom of the drive, and I knew they'd hear me. The woods pressed in, dark as tar. So I stayed. That night, lying on the lumpy couch, I woke to whispers. They thought I was asleep. I kept still, listening. "Make it look like an accident. He won't be missed." Like Silas. My blood froze. I clutched the blanket, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding so loud I swore they'd hear it. They were planning to kill me. I prayed then, quiet and desperate. Oh God, get me out of here." Around 3, I couldn't take it anymore. I slipped off the couch, eased the door open, and stepped barefoot onto the porch. The boards creaked, but the cabin stayed silent. I crept down the steps, through the weeds, every crunch of gravel sounding like gunfire in my ears. Halfway to the truck, I heard it. "Travis." My heart stopped. It was the woman's voice, the raspy one. But it came from the trees, not the cabin. I spun, squinting into the dark. "Family." A shadow shifted between the trunks, too tall, too thin. I bolted. My keys rattled loud in my hands, and I cursed, fumbling in the dark. I finally jammed them in, yanked the door, and slid into the driver's seat. Headlights flared, cutting through the woods. The tall man stood in the beam, smiling, eyes glinting. Behind him, the others fanned out, their shapes wrong somehow, stretched in the glow. I turned the key. The engine sputtered, coughed, then died. "God damn it, come on, come on." They started walking toward me, slow, steady, like they had all the time in the world. I slammed the lock, though I knew it wouldn't stop them. My hands shook so bad I could barely hold the wheel. Then, miracle or curse, the engine roared. I threw the truck into reverse, gravel spraying, and shot backward down the drive. The figures didn't run. They just watched, smiling, until the trees swallowed them. I didn't stop till I hit the highway, and even then I drove through the night, not daring to look in the mirrors. Later, the cops told me the same story they always do. Just squatters. Criminals hiding out. You were lucky. They checked the cabin and found it empty. No blankets, no stew pot, no sign anyone had been there. Just dust. But I know what I saw. And sometimes, when I'm out hunting in the dark, I swear I hear them. "Travis." A voice, soft, too close, from the tree line. "Family." I don't go near West Virginia anymore. But the hell of it is, no matter where I go, no matter how far, those voices follow. And deep down, I know one thing for certain. Uncle Silas didn't just leave me that cabin. He left me to them. And maybe one day, they'll come collect.